This panel discussion is maximizing resources by working together. First off, we have some great organizations and coalitions right here in northern Wisconsin. They're using the new approach that Steve had talked about earlier this morning and other methods to reach individuals and families that need a helping hand. So first, we have Dave Eisenreich, the chair of the Marathon County Hunger Coalition. Can you raise your hand? Next, we have Robyn Thibado, who is the director of Social Assets Program at Central Wisconsin Community Action Agency. She's also the president of both Wisconsin Balance and State Continuum of Care in the Menominee Free Clinic. Next, we have Deacon Richard Sage, executive director for Catholic Charities out of La Crosse. And finally, Kristin Porter, Department of Workforce Development, the Division of Employment and Training District Director in Wausau. So we are going to begin with Dave.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is this close enough? Okay. I'm going to use the podium. I'll warn you in advance that I found out kind of late yesterday that we were limited to 10 minutes, so I'm going to skip quickly through a few slides that I have, but we'll get through the meat of it. Marathon Hunger Coalition was formed in the latter part of 2009. We have a very broad cross-section of members, which has been very beneficial for us in getting different ideas, different perspectives as to how to address the problem of hunger in our area. Our mission is fairly straightforward. The goal is to educate the public, create an awareness of the extent of the problem of hunger in our county, identify practical solutions, and then implement them as best we can. Our job or our goal is not to replace what the fine work that our food pantries do, but to complement, supplement, and to help them wherever we can. When we were first getting started back in 2009, we did a survey to try to understand the problem of hunger a little bit better, and to understand the hurdles that the food pantries were facing in serving their clients. There were, I can't tell you how many, but 20, 25 different items that were identified, and we kind of narrowed it down to the items you see on the screen here. Nothing really has changed since then. Unfortunately, we still have a rapidly growing need. We'll talk about each of these. Donations are stronger, but not keeping pace with the demand. While we appreciate all of the contributions and donations that people make, our focus is to try to focus on the donation of more healthy and nutritious food. We had limited cold storage at the time and limited ability to either pick up or deliver food to other pantries in our area. In trying to understand the problem, we looked at, well, why are people hungry? What causes food insecurity? And again, there's a litany of those. And I would say that the bottom line here for too many people is that they have to make a choice. They have limited financial resources, and so they're trying to decide, or they have to decide whether they're going to pay the rent, buy food, pay a utility bill, pay a medical bill. At the end of the day, at least in my judgment, the major cause, it seems obvious, as far as hunger is concerned, is the first bullet there. And to me, it's jobs, jobs, jobs. We have still a significant unemployment in our area. It's improving, but it's still significant. And we have a rather large number of people who are what we term underemployed, or have skills greater than the jobs that they're in at the present time. I'm not going to dwell on this at all, but I think it's safe to say that all of these national strategies that we also looked at as we were trying to organize ourselves are all appropriate and safe items to be used and applied towards solving the problem of hunger in our area. Again, in the interest of time, I won't dwell on this, but this is, again, is part of our organization trying to figure out who we were, or who we wanted to be, and how we were going to move forward. And this was just kind of the idea of what to do. Specifically, our goals for the Hunger Coalition are focused in these areas. And organizationally, we've broken ourselves down into various subcommittees. We have an acquisition and distribution committee. We have a marketing committee that focuses on awareness. We have an education committee, and a couple of others as well. So we try to break down that group of 39 different people and organizations and to focus on different areas to take advantage of the specific expertise that individuals have. The early results, and we'll talk a little bit more about these, but I believe that there is a greater awareness of the extent of hunger. And again, everyone understands that there's always been a problem of hunger in our community. The shocking part is the extent of it, and I know it was very shocking to me. The coordinated food drives and purchases. One of the things that the Hunger Coalition has been able to do in working with the pantries is bring the pantries together, and the pantries have been very, very helpful and cooperative. We have common food purchases each month, so we combine our purchases to get the biggest bang for the buck. We coordinate our food drives and share all of the donations with the various pantries. We've had some folks that have created a best foods to donate guide. Again, the focus there is on healthy and nutritional donations as opposed to some of the stuff that you're likely to see. One of the things that we found early on was that our pantries were unable to accept any kind of large or significant donations of fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, and so on, because they didn't have any place to store it. Most, if not all, of our pantries had individual residential refrigerators that had been donated, frankly, the bottom line is they couldn't handle much fresh fruits and vegetables. So one of the things that we were able to do is raise funds in the community. We were able to go out and purchase a commercial cooler and freezer. Each of these are 25 feet by 12 feet. They were installed at the neighbor's place, and they benefit all of the members of the Hunger Coalition. So now we're able to accept large donations of fresh fruits, vegetables, frozen meats, and other frozen items, store those for a while until the food pantries can use them, and then we distribute them. So that's been very, very helpful for us. The community truck, early on we had the opportunity, people contacted us and say, hey, we'd like to donate 4 tons of potatoes as an example. That was great, but they wanted us to come and get them. And we didn't have the resources to go get them. We didn't have a truck. We didn't have any money to be able to rent something to go out. So long story short, we were able to go out again and raise funds in the community. We bought a used 16-foot box truck, and now we have a Hunger Coalition truck that's used extensively for picking up large donations as well as distributing some of the food to the other pantries, both locally and in the rural area. I refer to this as a good news, bad news chart. This kind of reflects what's happening in our area, and I should say these numbers just reflect the 8 pantries that are actively involved with the Hunger Coalition. And what it says is that, the good news is our member pantries have been able to serve a lot more people. The bad news is the demand through 2012, through this period on the chart, is up 56%. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, I haven't talked to anybody, any food pantry person who hasn't said that their demand for help and assistance in 2013 hasn't increased by double digits. Now, I would tell, I don't want anybody to misunderstand the numbers here. I think we have maybe 150,000 people or something in Marathon County. I'm not trying to suggest that half of them are getting food. There are duplications in these numbers, but there's duplications in the base as well as the 2012 numbers. Meaning, if I went to the neighbor's place this month and got some food and got help, and then I went next month, I'm counted twice. So that's what some of these numbers represent. Looking at it another way, our member pantries had 348,000 requests for food assistance over the last 4 years. So, I mean, the demand is extremely high. We talked about the need for increasing awareness. I won't go into a lot of detail. We've done a lot of things to try to increase the awareness on the part of the community and the area as to not only that we have a problem with hunger, but the extent of the problem again. And I think, although we've got a long ways to go, we've made progress in that regard. We've been, let's see, where am I here? Let me go this way. We've been very successful, I think, in broadening the sources for food donations and in so doing, increasing access to food. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are some of the things, again, over and above what the food pantries do on their own and their own individual programs. The Share the Harvest, I'll just comment on that. You're all familiar with the farmers markets. One of the things we learned is that the farmers really don't want to take whatever they have left over at the end of the day at the farmers market. They don't want to take it home again. And so what we've been able to do is we park our truck at the farmers market, and whatever is left over at the end of the sales day, most of those farmers are donating it to us. We in turn take it to the food pantries. They in turn to the neighbor's place where it's stored in this cooler, and then it's distributed to the member pantries. Community gardens, you're familiar with that. There are a number of community gardens that are for the sole purpose of supporting the Hunger Coalition. We've had a lot of different organizations help us, I guess is the point. I'll just comment on the Rotary clubs, the noon and early bird Rotary clubs in the area. We've made presentations to them a couple of years ago. They've become very, very active in supporting us. They raise funds for us. The Newton Rotary just raised enough money to purchase 150 turkeys with all the other stuff that goes with it for Christmas. Just a side story, you see the 2,940 dozen eggs. A member of the Rotary Club has a cottage up north someplace. A neighbor of his up north owns an egg farm in Whitewater. They got to talking, and because this member of the Rotary Club was familiar with the problem of hunger in our area, he talked to the owner of the egg farm, and the bottom line was that this guy delivered to us almost 3,000 dozen eggs so that we could distribute them to the community. And again, we were able to accept something like that because of the existence of that cooler and freezer, or the cooler that I talked about. Another thing that we've done, and I'm very proud of the members of our coalition who have helped in this area. One of the things, I can't even cook at home, so I'm not probably qualified, but one of the things I didn't realize is that many of the people who are getting food at food pantries don't know how to cook it. I thought I was the only one that didn't know how to cook it, I think. So one of the things that we're doing is conducting cooking classes. And we're conducting cooking classes for people using the kinds of foods that you can get at a food pantry. And so our members have done these cooking classes, explain everything, and then at the end of the day, we give them a bag of groceries with the specific ingredients that they used in the cooking class so they can take that home and cook that same meal at home for them. And that's worked exceptionally well for us. Again, I talked about expanding the sources of food. There's a lot of things. I won't go into a lot of the details. The United We Can one is a big one for us in the area. Those of you who don't live in the immediate Wausau area, we have a food sculpture contest every year that's part of the United Way's Community Fest program, where businesses and organizations build sculptures out of food. And there is a competition, and the bottom line is this last August, I think when we had the last one, we got like 24,000 pounds of food just from after the sculptures are built and judged and everything, all of the food used for those sculptures is donated to the Hunger Coalition. I've talked about the collaborative purchases, food pantries, we bring them together, we get the best bang for the buck. Gleaning projects, we've had a lot of farmers who will contact us and say, you know, I've harvested the field, there's still a lot out there, if you want to go out and get it, go ahead. And we've had some people that will go out and dig up potatoes that were left behind and other kinds of vegetables. Lately, in the past year, we've done a better job of trying to help out and involve the pantries in the rural areas. Specifically, we're working with Hadley, Spencer, Colby, and Edgar, and we delivered a truckload of food to those 4 pantries a couple of months ago, and I can't tell you how grateful they were, you know, to see us. So kind of in summary, you know, we have a long way to go to solve the problem of hunger in the area. But I think, you know, we tried to look at ourselves as an organization and determine what we've done right, what needs to be improved, so we're always doing that. But I think some of the keys to the success we've had so far are listed here. The partnership and collaboration, the sharing of best ideas between the pantries. You know, not everybody knows everything and knows the best way to do it, and that's worked well. The sharing of food, and this happens a lot, when a particular pantry gets a donation that they just can't use it all, they call up the other pantries and say, hey, we've got this, come and get it, and that works very well. Obviously, I think the leadership of the United Way and Joanne Janikowski specifically, who's got the whip over all of us, has been very helpful in keeping us going and keeping us focused and so on. The trust and honest communication. As I said, we have a wide variety of interests as members of our Hunger Coalition. All who have different ideas, different approaches, and we've been able to talk our way through all of those. We come to an agreement, and I think the fact that people are willing and able to talk openly and state their opinions openly has really helped us hone in on the specifics of the problem. And I think lastly, the shared vision, mission, and goals. At the end of the day, what we're all about is trying to do what's best for the common good. And again, we've made a lot of progress. We've got a lot more to go. So thank you.
Quick question for you. The awareness campaign you mentioned earlier, has that converted into financial and volunteer support through this type of public relations and public messaging beyond education? Yeah,
I think that the awareness campaign has helped in a lot of ways. It certainly has helped financially. We have had people walk into the United Way office and want to donate money specifically to the Hunger Coalition, and in many cases, in some cases, for a specific purpose. They will say, I want this to be used for gluten-free meals. I want to, that niche, because we don't do as good a job, or the pantries don't focus on that much. I want to do this for the Hunger Coalition, and then they may have, we had somebody come in and want to do diapers and various things like that. Because of the awareness campaigns that we've conducted, I think that's what allowed us to collect the money that we needed to purchase the commercial cooler and freezer, the truck that we use for delivery, and it has helped us extensively food donations themselves.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, next we have Robyn.
Good afternoon. I am, like Jesse said earlier, I'm the Social Assets Director at West Cap. We cover Barron, Chippewa, Dunn, Pepin, Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix counties. So obviously all those counties are not in Sean Duffy's district, but much of our territory is. So some of what I have to say might not apply directly to the 7th Congressional District. We also have, in my department, we cover hunger and homelessness. So I'm going to cross both topics a bit. As a community action agency, and for those of you that might not know, North Central CAP is the community action agency that covers this county and some surrounding counties. But as a community action agency, our mission is to eliminate poverty. And how you do that in a community very much requires collaboration. None of us obviously can work in a silo and solve the problems. So making community connections and involving other community organizations and having good communication and cross referrals is certainly key to getting any of this work done and having successes and getting families to self-sufficiency. So with that, I'll talk about what we do specifically, and then also talk about homelessness more on a statewide level a little bit. And I will definitely try to keep it to 10 minutes, I promise, Jesse.
We left our hook back at the office.
Okay. West Cap coordinates the TFAP distribution for 30 food serving sites in our service territory. And TFAP is the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which some of you might remember as the old commodities program from the federal government. Those 30 sites include 1 soup kitchen and 4 shelters, DV shelters and homeless shelters, and then 25 food pantries, only one of which West Cap actually runs. The other 24 food pantries are run by other local organizations, but we coordinate that TFAP food delivery to all of those 30 sites. To be a TFAP food pantry, you have to comply with federal regulations as far as food storage and civil rights, so you can't discriminate. You have to have access to all community members that meet the eligibility guidelines. In our area, in our food pantry area, we serve about 5,000 households per month. So that's unduplicated numbers. So that's quite a significant number that is being served by those 30 sites every month. Just in West Cap's food pantry, which is in Boyceville, a little tiny town in Dunn County, we see around 130 households a month. Those pantries in all the areas coordinate very closely with United Way agencies and the hunger coalitions in our area. We've had a lot of neat community projects around the Venison Project. We've worked closely with the United Way and other agencies to get extra freezers. Much of what I'm going to try not to. We do a lot of the same things, and I think the hunger coalitions around this state are very, very good, and we all do similar projects. So I'll try not to repeat too much. But a couple of things, we have backpack programs in many of our communities, and earlier this morning I heard about the issue with children being hungry. And so while they're in school during the week, they're at least assured, many are assured a school breakfast, many are assured of a school lunch, but when they go home on the weekend, there's not any assurance that they're going to get a regular meal. So many of our communities have partnered with schools and other local community agencies like United Way, like the Rotary, Kiwanis, to provide backpacks to students to take home after Friday school, to take home on the weekend, so they're not coming to school hungry on Monday morning. In addition, our agency runs a community supplemental food project, and that is also out of USDA, and it provides a box of commodities once a month to senior households. And we work with, to deliver those 500 boxes a month, we work very closely with ADRCs in all of our counties. And we also have local church groups and scout groups and other school groups come in to help pack those boxes, because the program does not provide enough funding to hire staff, so we very much rely on volunteers to assist with that program. And it's very well received by the seniors in our area, and there's always a waiting list for those services. We also do facilitate 2 farmers markets in Menominee and Boyceville, and we also work with those vendors. We have local pantries that do drive up a truck and here I thought we were the only ones doing it, but good ideas get around. But anyway, those vendors, many of whom are also low income, very happily provide produce at the end of a market day that can be redistributed to pantries in our area. We have facilitated worked on 2 community garden projects. We assisted with the development of one in Menominee, and then one at one of our housing developments up in Barron, in the city of Barron in Barron County. So those take a lot of work with community members. It's very much a volunteer-run event, so getting help with, we do pay for a little bit of the rototilling and raise money to do that, but all these food projects really do rely on volunteers. More recently, in the past year, we started a family table project, and that project, like was mentioned, a lot of folks come in and they don't know how to cook. A lot of the younger generation grew up on microwave meals or hamburger helper, and that's about the extent of the cooking skills. So we developed a program and developed a curriculum. With UW Extension, we work very closely with the UW Extension nutrition coordinators in our counties, and through a grant from the Wisconsin Medical College, out of Madison, we were able to start this program. And the program is a series of cooking classes, and we outreach to families with children, because we really felt that if we can get the children often drive the grocery carts in the store. So we thought if we could change the habits of the kids, then, and they're asking their parents for nutritional food, then we could make a dent in some of the chronic illness and obesity rates that we see hit lower income populations, even more so than middle class or higher populations. It's obviously a problem. We hear about it in the news all the time across our entire society, but lower income populations get hit harder because cheap food is often not nutritious food. So we developed a curriculum that went over different types of food over a series of classes that are 6 to 8 weeks long. So focusing on soups, salads, sandwiches, different easy things for people to make. It's not about making gourmet food. And using USDA My Plate as a basis for that program, and really focusing on whole grains, lean proteins, including things like beans that are cheap. And let me just tell you that beans are not something that Midwesterners really want to involve in their diet to a large extent, we have discovered. So we've had to get really creative. But at the end of the day, the families that have come to the classes have, in the surveys we've collected, we've served over 50 families now. Like I said, it's brand new programs, just started. But the families are really looking at food differently. And, you know, one family said, you know, their daughter who's in middle school now comes home and sautés vegetables for them 2-3 times a week. So this was a family that hardly ate vegetables at all. So we're seeing some small success with the program. Like I said, it's not huge yet, but the families that come are really looking at food differently by the time they leave. That's what we're doing around food. Now, I also mentioned that we have a number of homeless programs. West Cap runs a homeless prevention and transitional housing program, and a rapid rehousing program. So we kind of cover a wide continuum of services. 1 to 3 months rent assistance for people that are currently housed but have an eviction notice and are at risk of homelessness. We heard a lot about what happens on the other end when homelessness does happen in the morning session, but quite often, you know, we can prevent that from happening in the first place. You know, maybe somebody lost their job or got sick, missed some work, and couldn't pay rent for the month or maybe 2 months, and now they're going to get evicted. Well, it's a lot easier and a lot less costly and a lot better for that family and those children if they can remain housed. So we really focus on trying to keep them housed in the first place with that front end prevention. But we also work with our local shelters and take people out of shelter and get them into transitional housing or rapid rehousing. Now, to talk about things a little bit on a more statewide level, in the entire state of Wisconsin is broken up into 4 continuums of care designated by HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department of the federal government. Dane County is one continuum of care. Racine County is one continuum of care. Milwaukee County is one continuum of care, and then there's all the rest of us. So the Wisconsin Balance of State covers 69 counties, and the Wisconsin Balance of State Continuum of Care is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and they coordinate technical assistance and services across the entire state for homeless providers, which includes emergency shelters, DV shelters, transitional housing programs, which are limited to up to 2 years of service, permanent supportive housing programs for chronically homeless and disabled people, which is permanent housing. People don't need to leave that housing ever. So we do have those services available. In your individual areas, there's 22 local COCs that feed into that larger Balance of State continuum of care. So here in this county, North Central CAP is the lead agency, and each area has a lead agency that coordinates services in their particular area. We are going to have a new website after the first of the year, but in the meantime, you can go to wiboscoc.org, and there is a contact list on there. It may be slightly outdated, but my email is on there, rthibado@wcap.org. So if you have questions about who in your area to contact, if you're interested in homeless services in your particular area, I can get you to the right person. But just to give you an idea of the scope of services available across the state, there's approximately $7.8 million in transitional housing and permanent supportive housing programs available across the state. 33% of those total federal dollars are in the 7th Congressional District. More or less, the lines go across counties, so that's about as close as I can get you. But chronic homelessness is definitely an issue in the 7th Congressional District. Approximately 75 people, Lisa mentioned earlier this morning that there's a point in time count done, and Mr. Berg talked about it as well. So every January and every July in every community across the state, including the other 3 COCs. So statewide, there is a count at night in the wee hours, generally from about 10 p.m. From one night till 6 a.m. the next morning. Somewhere in there, different communities are counting. And people actually volunteer, and staff of providers go out on the street and to different places where people have been known to go if they're homeless. And we actually try to count all the people that are not sheltered in the state of Wisconsin on a particular night. And so in the latest count happened in July, there will be another one at the end of January. There were roughly 75 people that were unsheltered, so out on the street in the 7th Congressional District. That's a lot of people that don't have a place to go. July, maybe not so bad. You know, it was probably warm the last Wednesday of the month in July. In January, it's not so pretty, you know. I had a person call our agency the other day. They'd been staying in their car, and now their car didn't work. So now they didn't even have heat in their car. And so we, of course, referred them to the nearest shelter. But all of our shelters in our local COC were full. And there are resources, and Lisa talked about all the numbers and the resources available, but quite honestly, there is waiting lists for all the shelters in our area anyway, and I would guess very much across the state, many shelters have waiting lists. A lot of areas now, including our area, are developing, building, or using another building for warming shelters, so people can come in at night and then they have to leave in the morning. So response to homelessness in our area, all the local COCs are meet on a regular basis, and in each of these areas. And part of what we do is we talk about what are the gaps in services and develop plans to fill those gaps. And it really is about, it's not just the homeless shelters, it's not just the community action agencies, it's not just the DV or domestic violence shelters. It's schools, the homeless school liaisons, it's the local police or sheriff's department, it's the local mental health providers. All these people are involved in serving the homeless people that are in your area. And so it's very much a collaboration, and more people definitely need to get involved, because even though numbers are going down in our state, so is funding. So this year, that 7.8 million represents a 5% cut with sequestration, and that is probably going to continue to go down. As the resources go down, the numbers will go back up again. It's inevitable, because if there's not services available, or there's not jobs that provide a living wage, then people are going to remain in crisis. So it is a larger issue, and it takes a lot of community effort and big picture effort, both on the federal and the state level, to address all those issues. I think I've met my time.
I had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Thibado and the West Cap staff a couple months back, and one of the unique programs, we were talking about the preventative things you do. One of the unique projects you guys work on is, if I understand, is people may be able to start establishing themselves in some kind of home housing, and then they may have a job, but the situation is where they have a vehicle that is not very reliable. And you also mean you're getting a job, you're going to work, and your alternator goes out. That's a huge cost to people who are on that bubble. Can you talk just briefly about the car program?
Sure. WestCap has a transportation program called Jumpstart, and that came out of when TANF first started, and the W-2 program first went from AFPC to W-2 in Wisconsin. And the counties got together. Obviously, you all know, you work in a rural area. Transportation is one of the hugest barriers for folks to get self-sufficient. So our Jumpstart program provides, we work with a local credit union to provide loans to families. They have to have income because they have to be able to pay a loan. So it doesn't serve everybody, but it does serve those that are working in low-wage jobs, that they need a car to continue to be able to get to work. And we work with the credit union to have a very low interest rate. I think right now it's around 6%. So certainly it's higher than those of us that can afford to go buy a new car at, I don't know what it is now, 1% interest or some crazy low number like that. But it's certainly much, much better than going to a car lot where you might end up, a used car lot, where you may end up paying 21% interest. So we work with the families and make sure, work on budgeting with them. We do a budget. We work with them to get the right insurance. They have to have insurance for the vehicle. And then we educate them on how to maintain the car. And also, we include in that payment a small portion that gets put aside in a savings account for the client, so that when they need new tires, when they need a new alternator, when something happens, that they have that cash reserve there that is able to pay for those expenses. You know, it's nice to think that everybody's just going to save for that on a rainy day, but when you're already stretching your dollar as far as you can, it's hard to come up with that. I would just mention briefly that WestCap was one of 50 agencies chosen across the United States this last fall to provide pilot training on a financial toolkit that just recently came out from Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And we are starting to use that toolkit with the Jumpstart clients and all of our other clients on the budget counseling. And there will be a revised toolkit coming out in the summer. And if any of you work with folks that do work on budgets, I would suggest keeping your eye out for that. It's really a fabulous tool.
Thank you, Robyn. Next we have Deacon Sage.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. Just as a note of clarification, Jesse had mentioned before that I was from lacrosse, so I didn't want you to think that I was an outsider coming into here. Catholic Charities covers 19 counties here in west central Wisconsin, and which includes La Crosse, Eau Claire, and Wausau as well, and all of the counties in between. And I kind of feel like Wausau is my second home, especially these last year and a half or so. And but I do happen to live in La Crosse, but it's much balmier there. This morning, it was 1 degree here. It was 14 in La Crosse. I mean, like, you know, why wouldn't you live there? I mean, it's like going south, you know. So, but I'm very pleased to be here to be able to speak a little bit. Catholic Charities, as I mentioned, we do have a couple of shelters that we operate. We have a warming center in La Crosse. we have a full-service shelter in Eau Claire, and then we have the 25-chair warming center here in Wausau that we take care of. So basically, on any given night in the wintertime, we're responsible for over 90 people providing shelter services for them every night. Now, I say a little bit over 90, if you add up those numbers, it doesn't quite add up to 90, but our shelter in Eau Claire oftentimes goes over a little bit because we have a separate dorm area there with bunk beds and stuff in it, and then we have a community room as well. And on these very cold nights, we oftentimes have people staying in that shelter. But I trust none of you will say anything to the fire marshal in Eau Claire regarding that little aberration that occurs.
We didn't hear anything.
No, thanks. So we cover the parts of the 7th Congressional District and much of the 3rd Congressional Districts in Wisconsin. But I'm going to be talking more in generalities and in particular about work here in Marathon County. Now, I very much appreciated the Congressman's opening remarks when he said that I didn't know if we will walk away with a silver bullet on how to resolve these concerns that we have. And I think that that's very true. But what is very important is that we're here. And I really congratulate Congressman Duffy for bringing us together today. And by the way, he did sneak into the back of the room, so I see him back there peeking over. Because I think part of what we are here for is we need to proclaim a point, a goal, a mission at which we may never arrive, but we have this goal that we need to work for. And to end homelessness, and that sounds very improbable, but I was very glad to hear Mr. Bergs optimistically say we could. And that's great, and I think we should work toward that. But we need to have that vision. We always need to have that compelling vision because we are people of vision. It's about our mission. It's action-oriented. It's about mission, not about maintenance. You're not going to excite anybody by saying, let's work together to see if we can keep the status quo. That's just not going to happen. So thank you, Congressman, for convening this day to talk about vision and mission. Now, there's, whenever I talk about mission, I can't always fail to mention at Catholic Charities, our grant writer has a little sign in her office that says, no money, no mission. So there's a very practical aspect of this mission stuff. We can't all just be bleeding hearts. There's something that goes along with that. And I think what that's rooted in is our relationships. Relationships are so important. And the collaborative work that we do together to try to solve not only this issue, but maybe hunger or whatever the issue is that we're looking at. We have to work together with other folks. And here in Marathon County, for example, the Housing and Homelessness Coalition has done, I believe, a very remarkable job and is a great resource. And I would there's several people from the coalition here. I'd ask you just to raise your hands for a minute, just to show how many different folks there are around the room. Look at the hands that are above. And we've been working together to try to address some of these issues. And quite frankly, I think we've been following some of the initiatives that Mr. Berg talked about this morning. And that's what we need to do. We have to bring all of these resources together. Funding, financial resources, to provide case management resources, and public-private partnerships. We have to leverage the public and private sectors to provide capital to do this, and we can't do it alone. So if there's, for those of you who are not right here in Wausau working together on this coalition, if you go back to the other counties in this congressional district or other communities, I think that's a very, very important first step that you have to do, is get together with some other like-minded people who are willing to put forth work, study, effort, and collaborate together. And try to lay out some plans, try to get something to work. I can't stress enough the idea of encouraging these partnerships. Sometimes we can unintentionally create barriers. For example, I've also worked with a group in La Crosse who was identifying, just last month, some internal policies, ordinances and stuff that were going on in La Crosse that was inhibiting, in the eyes of some developers, it was making it difficult for them to build some sort of housing or, more of a dense housing situation in some areas of the city because there's ordinances against that. Well, maybe some of the paradigms have to shift a little bit. Maybe there's got to be some give and take. But if you don't have the relationships with people who are in government, who are people who are developers, who are people in the private sector, people who could probably provide some funding, it's going to be very difficult and we're just going to stagnate. So we have to work together to try to bring some of this into fruition. One of the areas as well, I think, as we talk about homelessness, of getting people out of homelessness, is the idea of working with folks. A lot of the times, the people that we see, that we work with, in terms of homelessness or transitioning them out of homelessness or trying to get them to succeed at something, is they probably had a history of failure. So it's nice to develop some sort of initiatives, some partnerships as well, to try to help people succeed and be successful. Here in Wausau, we have a program. It's not a real large program, but it's been a wonderful initiative created through the Women in Actions group and sponsored by the United Way. Catholic Charities operates it right now here in Wausau. Project Step Up. And that becomes a mentoring program, whereas people become successful renters, they become successful in getting out and getting back up on their feet, and it takes that one-on-one contact. Now, years ago in social work circles, we called that case management, but whatever you want to call it. I think that's what a lot of it takes. You have to develop these relationships, partnerships. Again, it's those relationships. It's getting together with people. It's putting people in contact with one another, and those initiatives do work. Just a little bit about the experiences with the Housing and Homelessness Coalition here in Wausau. Goal-oriented. I can't talk enough about mission. I mean, that's what it's about. When the group gets together, this was a couple of years ago. This is what we had to do. We had to establish a warming center here. There were too many people falling between the cracks. Too many people staying outside. And as I mentioned before, it does really get cold here. So what were we going to do? But setting that as a goal and a vision, and setting a date. I remember going to some of those initial meetings, and people saying, okay, we're going to open it this winter. And it's like, okay, well, that's only about 4 or 5 months from now. But okay, let's go, let's do it. And working together, everyone being like-minded, we were able to do it. And this is a broad cross-section. When everyone comes to one of the homeless coalition meetings, there's probably people representing over 20 different agencies and organizations. Whether it's faith-based groups, government groups, other social service organizations, a wide variety, healthcare institutions, police. Everyone is working together. Okay, how can we contribute to this? How can we move on? That's the kind of collaboration it takes. No one can do it alone. And then once you do get a spearhead and get something started, we would be dead in the water operating our warming center if it wasn't for about 150 different volunteers, literally, if not more, that we depend upon every day in one way, shape, form, or another to participate in the activity of the warming center. It doesn't just happen alone. These people are coming in and giving hours of their time, either bringing in food, working hours at the center, staying overnight in some instances, to be there to staff. We wouldn't be able to do it without that type of a help. But it can be done. It really can. And there's no point in just, sitting by and say, yeah, this is a problem. I don't know what we can do. And, just kind of going on. You've got to do something. Elie Wiesel, the survivor from the Nazi death camps, he had said, just as despair is spread from one another, so too is hope. And I think we have to do that. And so that's why in working in collaboration with the folks here in Marathon County, I've really been inspired, and I find it very exciting to work on these projects. This is a marvelous situation and a marvelous community in which to be participating in. So I'm hopeful, I'm joyful, and I'm optimistic that indeed something will be able to happen here.
Thank you, Deacon. Thank you very much. We'll move into Kristin Porter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, a few weeks ago, I was posed with the question about coming to this summit. And the question I had to answer was, how does a job center address hunger and homelessness? And do I press the red button to go forward? Okay. So that was the question I've been asking our partners in our building and kind of wrestling with. Now today, before I get into the rest of the wonderful slideshow, we talked a couple times today about a living wage. And it's important for you to know that in the state of Wisconsin, as of yesterday at 3:30 p.m., when I captured the data, the living wage was $14.55. For our area, the living wage is $12.42. So that's important information to know as we talk about employment, and we believe at the Job Center that being stable and getting employment will help with the other things that you want to accomplish in your life. What is the Department of Workforce Development, Department of Employment and Training looking at right now that we are considering as things on the forefront? Well, you probably are aware that on December 28th, extended or emergency unemployment is probably going to be coming to an end. It's possible that the folks in Washington in January will take another look at that and retroact it, but we don't feel that that's likely at this particular time. So what that means across our country is that 1.3 million Americans will lose their unemployment benefits, and that's an average of $1,166 per month that families have received. What's going to happen to those folks when that ends? We are preparing for that at a local level as well as a statewide and national level. When we talk about the Job Center, Department of Employment and Training, and the Department of Workforce Development, the state of Wisconsin is divvied up into 11 workforce development areas. WASA is Workforce Development Area 6, which is counties from Adams all the way up to Vilas County, 9 counties. So that's our Workforce Development Area services those 9 counties with all sorts of information and projects and services regarding unemployment and jobs seekers and employers looking for employees. Also, in 2012, jobless benefits helped to keep 1.7 million people, including 446,000 children, out of poverty. So we also capture data, and I think those are important things to note as we move forward to and beyond December 28th. Mr. Berg mentioned some of this morning about stability. When I was talking to my group in Wausau, one of the things that you have to have a job is some stability. Now, it's really hard to be looking for a job and to be at your brother's house for 2 months, your sister-in-law's house for 3, and maybe your aunt or uncle or grandma for another couple of months. because it's very hard to track you with your address, with your phone number. Employers want an immediate response. They don't necessarily want someone where they have to really track them down. We also know that by having our physiological needs met, we can then climb up that hierarchy of need into things that would include security of your family, good health, employment, and also resources. Job centers are one-stop operators. And when I was thinking about answering the question, how does Job Center or Job Services address hunger and homelessness? We do believe that someone can come to any of our centers and be linked up to a variety of services right under our roof. And job seekers and employers can access a wide variety of programs and services. We work significantly with employers, we work significantly with job seekers. Okay, under one roof. In the Wausau office, we have the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, Forward Services Corporation, North Central Technical College, and the Labor Education and Training Center. Now, the Labor Education and Training Center comes into play a lot when you talk about folks that have been displaced from their employers. Particular examples that you will recognize would be the paper industry. What did the folks do when they all of a sudden were realizing that they were not going to have jobs? Well, the Labor Education and Training Center can take funding that they have and retrain folks to get jobs in other areas. So out of that group, let's just take Brokaw Papers for an example. We have people going to school for nursing, for accounting, for IT, and that can be at a 2-year or a 4-year college. And those funding to obtain that education is provided to the participants. There are some qualifying things that have to be addressed at the very beginning, but it's been a huge success. We heard some talk about, or I did anyway, during one of the breaks about retraining. This is a great example of retraining someone to get a job to maintain security for themselves and their families. The Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. Well, what in our office does that include? It includes the Division of Employment and Training and Job Center Wisconsin. It includes the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or DVR. It includes Office of Veteran Services and Office of Apprenticeship Standards. And I'm going to go into brief descriptions of each in just a moment. Okay, job services. And I'm going to have to step back here so I can... We offer employment counseling and training. We link job seekers to employment. We have skill development and testing to enhance employment opportunities. We have re-employment services. Anyone that is on unemployment insurance comes to some of our re-employment sessions. They're called RES sessions. And they get one-on-one work with counselors. They get to look at the resume. They get to look at some testing opportunities, and also to enhance their skills, to increase their employability. We provide resources and referrals. And here's where we talk about all the partners that are in this room. We talk about all the partners that are under our roof. Every day we see people who don't have a place to live. Every day we see people that use our restrooms to wash their hair and wash their clothes. And so when we see those things happening, we will refer either to our partners under our roof or to the partners in our community. JobCenterofWisconsin.com. Every day we have about 55,000 jobs across the state of Wisconsin listed on JobCenterofWisconsin.com. And SkillExplorer.com. Now, some of you probably work with folks that lost their jobs and they don't know what they're going to do next. Maybe the job that they had is not available. If you can direct them to SkillExplorer.com, they can put in the job that they had, and it will take keywords out of that job and show them what jobs are available in the state of Wisconsin, what counties they are in, who's hiring, and very often a rate of pay. So it's an excellent, excellent website. We offer special assistance to veterans, migrant workers, unemployment claimants, and migrant farm workers. We have special assistance provided to veterans. That's a duplicate sentence, I'm realizing, and that was not on there before, so I apologize for that. We have job orders. We have lots of employers across the state that access us for job orders. And we work with them very, very closely because we want to provide them the best person for the job that they are looking to fill. We have job fairs, recruitment testing programs and seminars, and everything focusing around workforce and workplace development issues. Okay, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation provides information, resources, and services for those with a disability that it can impact them getting or keeping employment. And a counselor works with them one-on-one to develop a customized plan to lead to employment. And there's also an application process. Not everyone is accepted as DVR. There's 3 levels of criteria that someone must fulfill. Office of Veteran Services. Veterans are a wonderful group, and many of them are homeless that we see. Veterans can come in and they can be retrained for employment. We also take a look at all the things that are focusing and going on in the area of veteran services, so we make sure that we're providing them the absolute best. We also provide resources and referrals to appropriate services. Those that are homeless, those that need food, those that need something more than what we can offer under our roof, we will provide their resources to the community. Now, our program can link some people to housing, but sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it might be help with an electric bill. In Wausau, the local Men of Honor group can sometimes provide financial assistance. Office of Apprenticeship Standards. It's a structured system that combines on-the-job training and classroom instruction. This is really an interesting program. There's many apprenticeships, very too long for me to go through right now. Most apprenticeship programs are 2 to 4 years. There is an application process, and most apprentices are hired by the companies that train them. We talked about this just a moment ago. Eligible workers affected by job loss due to permanent layoff or business closing. We can think of, in particular, the paper companies around our area, from Port Edwards all the way up to Wausau and beyond. We take a look at the workers and we want to transition them into new employment, and that can include enhanced job searching, on-the-job training, support services, as well as education. And then we also provide resources and referrals to appropriate services. And I'm going through this quickly because we have that doggone 10-minute time frame. Forward Services Corporation. We have W-2 with Forward Services. And that again will help with employment training to eligible families and help them secure and maintain work. It includes employment, work readiness, potential monthly payment can be received based upon eligibility. We have Wheels to Work. We talked about that a little bit. Robyn mentioned that in her area a little bit ago. This promotes family-sustaining employment and independence through vehicle repair and access to affordable, reliable transportation. Now, one would think in our area that transportation would not be difficult, except that the city buses do not run on Saturday and Sunday. So to get to a job late at night, early in the morning, Saturday and Sunday, hard to do if you don't have a vehicle. So this is a great program that works with that issue. There's some emergency assistance funding available for rent or energy, and again, some eligibility requirements to apply. Workforce Investment Act. It's a range of workforce development activities for youth 14 to 21 and adults ages 18 and up. Promotes higher rates of employment, job retention, earnings, and occupational skills in high-demand jobs. We want to take a look at what's coming forward. What do employers need in the future? And prepare people so that in the future, when we know something's happening, they're well prepared to obtain those jobs. Our NTC Learning Center provides GED, HSED instruction and basic skills in reading, writing, and math for college entrance and continuing education. It is amazing to me, working in this area since September, how many folks can be unprepared to fill out a job application online, to know the tools that they have to go obtain a job and the education that's required. It's a very, very competitive market, and I know that you're aware of that, given the areas that you're working in. So we want to prepare people as best as possible to give them the best start they can possibly have in looking for that next right job. And then there's many other workshops that NTC offers with resources and referrals as well to the community. We also have a program that works with individuals 55 and older, helping them find employment, and that matches the individuals with nonprofit and government sites for part-time work. Also some on-the-job training. What's open to the public? Now, what I talked about before in the previous slides are things that if a job seeker is coming to us, what would we do for that job seeker? What would we do for that person that needs help with getting to work, with having some sustainable income while they are going to school and educating themselves as they want to support their family in a way as well. So what can the public do in accessing services at the job center? Well, we have internet service for job searches. We have 18 computers from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon that people from the community can come in and access. They can work on their resume, they can access Job Center Wisconsin. We provide faxing and photocopying for anything job related. We have specialists, employment and training specialists that will help with resume and cover letter writing, application processing, career counseling, all of that and more. Basic computer classes. We had a gentleman it was after I started, which was the end of September, so I'm going to say October. He came in and he was looking for a job, and one of our computer gurus had a session with him, and she said, well, where would you like to start? What are you looking for so we can get you on the right track here? And his response was, I'd like to know how to turn the computer on. So not only did he learn how to turn on that particular laptop, but she took him around to every computer almost in our center and showed him where the different possibilities were that an on button could be found. So that was step one. And then they quickly moved on to the mouse. Interviewing preparation and skills. A very big deal. And we have, again, our specialists will take someone and work with them to get them as ready as possible for that next right job. And then workplace skills. What are their dynamics? How should you dress? How should you appear? What are some things you should say? What are some things that you shouldn't say in the workplace? And then the National Career Readiness Certificate. Now this is really a new feature. Many of our employers on Job Center Wisconsin do require that someone have the NCRC. If you go on to Job Center Wisconsin, any employer that has a red star listed on their job order is requiring any candidate to have the NCRC. And we can take care of that very quickly. Just by contacting our office, we can have that done. It takes some time for a student to complete it, but we can have that done very efficiently and well. But that's a new and up-and-coming certificate that people are very interested in. I think that is my last slide. I did want to just update you on a couple of things. I had a phone call yesterday from a trucking company in south central Wisconsin looking for 40 full-time truck drivers to begin in January. They wanted some on-the-job training, and one of our partners under our roof has funding for on-the-job training to benefit the company. And their requirement is that the interviewees come prepared with a CDL license, Class A. And so I shared this with some of my staff members, and the woman happened to call me back later, and I said, one of the questions I have is, I know you've been looking for these 40 full-time truck drivers for a period of time. What has the barrier been that you have not found those 40 truck drivers? And she said, well, we get them, but then The Department of Transportation has these requirements. You cannot have a DUI within 3 years ago, previous. You cannot have certain things. And she said, we cannot find someone that can start right now with a record that's acceptable. I thought that was very interesting. And so now we are working with that company. We hopefully will get enough people in our area that they can perhaps hire some, if not all of those 40 full-time truck drivers. It's a pretty awesome position for the right person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause for all 4 of our panelists. We are a little bit over our extended time, but as Congressman Duffy calls it, rapid fire. We're going to do a couple of quick questions from the audience before we take another break. So for those questions, please raise your hand and Nathan will bring you the microphone. And also when you do, once again, just state your name and what organization you may represent.
Thank you. Robyn, I was wondering if I had 2 things. If you could talk a little bit about some of the challenges, especially in the rural areas and doing the appointed time count, how easy it is for people sort of to disappear and then are not really effectively counted in the appointed time count just because, you know, it's not a condensed area. And then maybe talk a little bit of some of the challenges to warming shelters under the park legislation.
Sure. First of all, the point in time count. Like I said, it happens from about 10 p.m. one night to 6 a.m. the next morning. So people really are out in the middle of the night searching places. In our rural counties, there's obviously a lot of places we've had people that we know are in hunting shacks or they're tented out in the woods. These places are extremely difficult to find in the middle of the night. So what we have done is identified those places, what some areas have done, have identified those places and talked to those people and interviewed those people so that they can be counted for the point in time, and then made sure that, because we get identifying information, and then made sure that they're not recounted during the middle of the night hours. What we do in our particular area for our point in time count especially is we concentrate on known areas in the larger populated centers. So we're not out beating through the cornfields or anything like that. We concentrate on like the city of Menominee, the city of Hudson, Somerset, New Richmond, those areas in the 24-hour areas that are open, Walmart parking lots, truck stops, warehouses, storage units is, I guess not warehouses, the storage units, and different places where we know people have come from. So when people come into shelter, one of the things that they're asked is, where did you spend the night before? So then we have an idea of where people are at. Sometimes they don't want to say because, you know, they just don't want to say where they were at, because there might be other people there that they're trying to protect or whatever. But we do find out that information, and we do the best job we can. I'll be the first to say I'm 100% sure that we don't count everybody, because some people don't want to be found. And furthermore, we just simply can't cover. West Cap service territory is over 5,000 square miles. There's no way we have enough volunteers to cover that kind of area. So we do the best job we can and go to the places that are most likely, but we don't get everywhere, and I'm pretty sure that's probably the story in all rural areas. Your second question, warming shelters and the Hearth Act. Well, the warming shelters aren't really necessarily part of the Hearth Act. There's no funding for warming shelters, so they're not really part of the Hearth Act. It's not something that HUD is targeting for funding. Warming shelters, like the Deacon said, is very much a community effort, and I know in Menominee too that it really does. It takes hundreds of volunteers because you cannot, there's no amount of money available to pay staff for every night during the winter season to be at these places overnight. So in the communities that have warming shelters, it's very much a community effort, and it is community money and community volunteers that get that job done. And the warming shelters, in the areas where I know there's warming shelters, it provides a very critical service, and many of them are just open during the winter months, where it's not warm. Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. We have time for one more before we take a break. Anyone?
Not really a question, but perhaps a comment. I said I would really appreciate in looking at workforce development and the opportunities to promote access to jobs. The one area that I've heard a lot of struggle around is childcare. I appreciated the transportation connection, but also just childcare during the regular business days, but then also those off moments. That's where some of the jobs are available, are in the evenings or on the weekends. And I think our community really struggles with the opportunity to promote working parents during those times due to childcare needs.
You're absolutely right. And of those 55 approximate jobs daily that we see on Job Center Wisconsin that are available, some of those hours are outside. A lot of the hours are outside the normal working hours, and yes, that is an issue. I wish we had a great solution. It is a reality, and it's something that we have to work toward, to fixing those dilemmas and having good, secure, and safe options.
Well, thank you very much, this panel. Thank you, panel, for participating today. Any questions? Okay, well, thank you. We're going to take a break for about 6 minutes. And we'll reconvene. Thank you.